Welcome to the Affluent Sales Minute. Now, continuing our series on our latest affluent research, in this session, we're going to talk about what triggers the affluent to search for a new advisor. Now, there's more to this than initially meets the eye. And why do I say that? Well, because our research has highlighted the key areas of dissatisfaction, and which is communication, lack thereof, and service, lack of personal service. But in the intangibles world, you see, that dissatisfaction needs to be stirred up from an outside source most of the time. So these are excellent fuel, the communication, knowledge of communication, knowledge of service for an advisor who's out there prospecting and skilled in stirring up dissatisfaction, but they don't necessarily prompt the search. That's a clear distinction. So we're talking about here what prompts the search. And what does? Accumulation of assets. 43% started their search when they had a certain amount of assets, as they accumulated wealth. And 23% started their search with sort of a financial life event. They inherited money, they sold a business, there was an insurance, there was something with insurance coming their way. 13% weren't happy with their advisor, so it does happen. And 13% were other, which I'm not really sure what that was. And 7% was because they didn't really have time anymore to do it themselves. So here's a handful of critical takeaways here. First is you need to be positioned with your clients as a financial advisor who is well positioned and well qualified to handle the complexity of their financial affairs as they accumulate wealth. In other words, you're the person who is geared up to handle the multidimensional aspect of their family's financial affairs. They don't want a one-dimensional advisor. You don't want them accumulating wealth and then searching for somebody to replace you. And the second takeaway here is word-of-mouth influence works both ways. And you don't want that word-of-mouth influence working against you along the lines of, Matt's a great guy, but, he doesn't really handle larger clients. Ouch. Because you want word-of-mouth influence working for you. Now, how do you do that? Well, you need to be masterful in showcasing your comprehensive wealth management process, how you do handle the multidimensional aspects of wealthy clients' families' financial affairs. You need to be able to do this with your clients even before they have wealth, so they know. You need to be able to do it with prospects, with centers of influence. You want the word to get around in a very positive way. And so at the same time, you need to have your antenna out, and undoubtedly you know this, for money in motion. But it's a competitive world out there. So the next scope of our research was into, what was the extent of their search? How many advisors did they consider? And this is really interesting. 41% only considered the advisor that was recommended. You were recommended to them by a client or a center of influence, and bingo bango, they hired you. Now, 40% considered one or two others, 20% one other, 20% two others. Now, what does that mean? Well, really, that comes from CPAs and attorneys. Much of that is because they usually will recommend one or two, maybe three advisors. And there is a one or two search in addition to the one they hire. And 19% really shop around. So what's the takeaway here? Well, basically the largest portion, 41%, don't shop around. You were recommended. It again signifies the power of the recommendation and word-of-mouth influence. But that said, 59% do consider one or more advisors. And this is a competitive landscape here. So what's the takeaway on that? You got to be on your A game. And in particular, in the in-office meeting, you got to be masterful of demonstrating how you do what you do in that in-office meeting. So you need to practice. You need to refine it. Get feedback. Get feedback from a peer. Role play it with your coach. Because you see, you only have one chance to make that great first impression to capitalize on the opportunity when the affluent are searching for a new advisor. Bye for now.